welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to be chatting with you guys all about the supplements that I have been taking throughout this pregnancy. If you guys are new around here, my name is Becca. I'm a registered dietitian and I love to share my nutrition knowledge in a way that is relatable. I love to share about food and eating in a way that is healthy and balanced and realistic. And I am really excited to be doing this video today because pregnancy, nutrition during pregnancy, and even like breastfeeding and postpartum and that whole life cycle is one of my favorite areas of nutrition to study and learn about. I just think it's so fascinating, and this is such a unique time in our lives as women when it comes to nourishing our bodies and our babies, and it's just all super interesting. I actually did a video just like this in my last pregnancy, sharing all the supplements I was taking, but I've kind of switched things up this time around, so I wanted to do an updated video for you all. I am definitely a firm believer in trying to get as many nutrients as you can from real food, but pregnancy is definitely a very unique time where you are just constantly, all of your stores are being taxed. Your demand for nutrients is just so much higher. So supplementation generally is a really good idea. That being said, it's still individualized. So, you know, most women are probably going to be on a prenatal. That's a pretty basic supplement for pregnancy. But, you know, you're gonna see me taking some supplements outside of just a basic prenatal. And just because I'm taking those does not mean that you should necessarily be taking those. So you wanna make sure that you are talking with your care provider. You wanna make sure that you are having, you know, like lab work done to actually see where some of your nutrient stores, like where they're at if you have deficiencies. And also just doing your own research to make sure that you are taking the best approach for you and your body and your baby, because we're all different. Okay, with that being said, I want to share with you guys what I am taking this time around in pregnancy, and hopefully you can find it helpful, take what you want, leave what you don't. So I'm going to start with my prenatal. So this is the prenatal that I am taking this pregnancy. It's called the Optimal Prenatal by Seeking Health. So this is not the same prenatal I took in my last pregnancy. I kind of upgraded this time around. If you guys don't know my history, I ended up having a miscarriage at almost like 12 weeks in the beginning of 2020, well-ish. And after that happened, I just kind of got a little bit more serious about my supplementation. Not that I wasn't before, but I just kind of wanted to find something that was even better than what I was already taking. And when I found this, I just really, really liked it. It is definitely pricey. It's the most expensive prenatal that I've ever bought, but it does have a lot in it, and I'm going to kind of go through some of the key points that I really love about this specific prenatal. It's formulated by, his name is Ben Lynch, Dr. Ben Lynch. He's a naturopath, and he is extremely knowledgeable when it comes to nutrition, which I love that. I love his approach, and he just has really well-made, high-quality supplements. So I was excited when I found this, but I will also mention that he actually just came out with another prenatal. I think it's called like Prenatal Essentials, but it's a more basic, like pared down version of this. This has a lot of extras in it, which I like, but not everyone necessarily needs that. So that could be another thing to look into. It's a little more affordable. It's less pills to take. So that's just another option. Okay, so I'm literally just gonna start going through the nutrient label and just point out some things that I really like about this prenatal, and then also just nutrients in general that are key or important during pregnancy. I mean, all nutrients are important. They all play a role, but there's definitely some key ones to make sure that you are really making sure that you are getting enough of while you are pregnant. So first I wanted to point out the vitamin A. There is 1,500 micrograms in this specific supplement, which is actually a little bit on the higher end. This is about double the RDA. RDA is recommended dietary allowance, and that's like a set limit what you want to reach in a day. So this is on the higher end. I'm personally okay with that for a couple of reasons. So one, it's the UL, the upper limit, which you don't want to surpass, is 3,000 micrograms. So it's half of that. And of course, you're not going to absorb all of the vitamin A that's in here. And also, it is a blend of both beta carotene, and then also retinol palmitate, which is a preformed vitamin A version. Now, if you look up vitamin A in pregnancy on the internet, you're gonna see a lot of like warning signs about not going overboard with vitamin A in pregnancy because it can actually cause birth defects. You can reach toxic levels of vitamin D. That's a very real thing. Preformed versions of vitamin A are the ones that you have to be really careful with, not so much the beta carotene. So the fact that this is not all 1500 micrograms of the preformed vitamin A, it has a lot of that beta carotene as well. That makes me a lot more comfortable with it. And also vitamin A is super important during pregnancy for building mucous membranes, for the development of vision. It's also important for the immune system. It's a really important vitamin. So you don't want to be scared of it, but you also want to make sure that you're not going super way overboard. So outside of diet, I don't consume any other, vitamin A sources, and it's really hard to go overboard when it's coming from diet, but it is easy to go overboard with supplementation because it's obviously such a concentrated version. So I just wanted to point that out because it is kind of on the high end, but I'm personally comfortable with that, and those are the reasons why. Okay, next I wanted to talk about folate. So this supplement, and also the last supplement prenatal that I was on before this one, has the active form of folate, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. In my last video I went through a full explanation of this, and I'm gonna do it again here because I think it's really important. So when it comes to folate, most of the time, well now not so much because a lot of supplements are providing a more high quality active form of folate, but there are still a lot of supplements out there that supplement with folic acid. Folic acid is the synthetic form of folate. So the problem potentially with the synthetic form lies with the fact that it has to be converted in the body to an active form of folate. Now there is a 5-step process that folic acid has to undergo in order to end up as this, methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is the active form, which is what our bodies can actually utilize. So on the surface, we can't actually utilize folic acid. It does nothing for our bodies. It actually does have to go through this conversion. Now, in this 5-step process, there is an enzyme called MTHFR. This is another thing that's becoming more widely known even since I've done my last video, my last pregnancy, which is a really good thing. So the problem with MTHFR, it's a required enzyme in this catalyst, process, and it's actually very common to have what's called a gene variant of this enzyme, which can affect how well it works. So it's actually estimated that about half the population has some kind of gene variant with the MTHFR enzyme. And these gene variants can really decrease the amount of folic acid that we're able to convert. It depends on the exact type of mutation that you have. Some are more severe than others, but it can really decrease the amount of folic acid that turns into folate, and therefore it decreases the amount of folate that's actually usable. So you might be taking a folic acid or a supplement that contains all the folic acid technically that you would need, all the folate that you would need, but if you're not converting it to the usable form, you might not be getting nearly enough of what you need, or just nearly enough of what's provided in the supplement because it's not actually able to be utilized. Folate is extremely important, especially very early in pregnancy for the formation of the spine. So we want to make sure that we are getting the folate that we need. Now, when I did this video previously, I had never been tested for MTHFR. I didn't know if I had a gene variant. I just chose to take the active form anyway because it was one less thing for my body to do, and also I wasn't sure of whether or not I had an issue processing folic acid. But actually since then, and having a miscarriage, I did go ahead and get tested for it. I do actually have a gene variant. It's in the I think it's C677T, something like that. But mine is the heterozygous version, not the homozygous version. Homozygous can be much more problematic, and it really affects how you're able to process folic acid. So I am not on that end of the spectrum, but I am kind of glad in hindsight that I've always just taken the active form. It's also one less thing for your body to do, and if you do have a gene variant and you're taking in a lot of folic acid from your supplements, it's also in a lot of enriched wheat products, which are hard to avoid. You're gonna end up with a lot of built up folic acid in your system, which can have other side effects. So that's just my whole little spiel on folate and the active form. Okay, that was kind of a long explanation, but next I want to move on to magnesium. Magnesium is another really important supplement in here. So this has 250 milligrams, which does not quite meet the full RDA, which is 350 milligrams. I do actually supplement with magnesium extra, so I'll talk a little bit more about that, why I do, the benefits of, magnesium and all of that when we get to that supplement. Okay, next I wanted to point out vitamin D. Vitamin D is very, very important. I actually have a whole video here on my channel that talks all about extensively on vitamin D, what it does in the body, why it's important. And it's just definitely especially important during pregnancy. So this has 50 micrograms, which is equivalent to 2000 IU, which is actually like higher than the typical RDA, what's recommended. But most people, most practitioners are now recommending and have been for years to supplement much higher than what the RDA actually is. So I actually do supplement some additional vitamin D on top of this, and I will talk about that when I talk about my other vitamin D supplement, why I do that. I also wanted to point out that this has vitamin K2 in it, which I absolutely love that this is in here. Vitamin K2 is another, something that's not really talked about a whole lot, but it is a very important key nutrient. And it's really, really important for like the utilization and transport of calcium in our body. I actually have, again, another video talking all about K2. It's so important. And again, most people don't know about it. So I would definitely go watch that. But I love that this prenatal contains vitamin K2. Whenever I'm taking vitamin D, I want to make sure that I'm also taking K2, and same thing for calcium. And this has 100 micrograms, which is actually over the RDA. So you're getting plenty of that. Another thing I wanted to point out is the vitamin B12 in this prenatal is the also in the active form, just like folate. So it's has methylcobalamin and then also adenosylcobalamin. And this has 150 micrograms, which is a lot. But I just wanted to point out that this is the active form, which I appreciate, and vitamin B12 is really important for, it works alongside folate, it's important in energy metabolism, it's needed for methylation, it's just a really key nutrient, and I just really like that it has the active form. Okay, next I wanted to point out calcium, which is another super critical nutrient during pregnancy. We are literally building another skeleton, so we need a lot of calcium. Now, this actually doesn't have a ton of calcium in it. It has 400 milligrams. The RDA for pregnant women is 1,000 milligrams, so it's less than half, but that seems to be pretty common across the board. I've looked at a lot of prenatals, and typically the calcium is on the lower side, so I'm not surprised by that. I don't necessarily supplement with additional calcium, but I do get a lot of calcium from my diet. I am someone who eats dairy. I love me some grass-fed dairy, so yogurt or cheese or milk sometimes. I tend to get a decent amount of that in my diet, so I haven't supplemented calcium on top of it. Probably wouldn't be the worst idea, honestly, but I just, I just get what's in here and then from my diet, and I'm okay with that. And I just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, another thing I wanted to point out about this prenatal, which is super important to know if you're going to take this, it does not contain iron, okay? They don't put iron in here, I think, because a lot of women have trouble with iron. There's usually a lot of prenatals that are available with and without iron. I was actually surprised that they didn't have that. They just don't have iron in their prenatals as far as I saw. So I wanted to point this out because iron is so important, you guys. And iron is often something that a nutrient we get deficient in as pregnant women. So I actually, towards the end of my last pregnancy, did become iron deficient. I didn't quite get to the anemic range. So I did need to supplement on top. So this pregnancy, I obviously, because of that, and then also because there's no additional supplemental iron in here, I also take additional iron as well, which I will get to that. Okay, and like I said in the beginning, this has a lot of kind of extras in here. They do offer a more pared down versions that's just more of just nutrient essentials. But I just wanted to kind of point out a couple of the things that I really like about this prenatal as far as extras go. So it contains lutein and zeaxanthin, which I just thought was kind of cool. Those are both carotenoids. They're really powerful, especially when it comes to our vision. So we're just thinking about this baby with its developing eyes and retinas, and I'm in charge of making sure that those eyes are properly formed. I just kind of like that that's in here. And then another thing I wanted to point out, there's a lot of other kind of extras in here. There's coenzyme Q10, ginger, inositol, but I wanted to point out that does contain red raspberry leaf. I drink red raspberry leaf tea during pregnancy starting in the 2nd trimester, and it's not well researched, but there's tons of anecdotal evidence out there that it can really help tone the uterus and you know, promote stronger contractions and faster labors, more productive labors. And I was on top of my red raspberry leaf game in my last pregnancy, and I had a fairly quick, very smooth active labor with my daughter. It was like 5 hours from the start of active labor until she was in my arms, which was pretty good. And there was no hiccups. It was very smooth, very sequential. So I am a believer in red raspberry leaf, at least based on my own personal experience. So I like that that's in here as well. Ooh, okay, that's everything about the prenatal. I know that that's a lot of information, but I like to know all of the things, and I have spent a lot of time researching prenatals, and I think it's really important to understand what you're taking and just to make sure that you are getting what you need. So speaking of getting what you need, like I said, there are some things I supplement on top of the prenatal. I don't just take this and call it a day. I actually take a decent amount of stuff. Okay, so let's first start with vitamin D, because like I said, vitamin D is super important. Now this does have 2000 IU, which is a pretty good amount. Now, I highly encourage you to get your vitamin D levels tested before you even get pregnant, or like when you get your blood work done in the 1st trimester. Make sure that they are checking your vitamin D. You want to make sure that you have adequate vitamin D. It's so important. Now that is exactly what I did. I got it tested, you know, again at the beginning of the pregnancy, and while I'm not low, I'm also not super high. So my midwife wanted me to supplement on top of it, and I totally agreed with that as well. So I do take an additional, we landed on like an additional 2000 IU a day. Now remember, I mean, I had been taking this prenatal with the 2000 for months before this pregnancy, so that wasn't quite doing it for me, which is why I chose to supplement. We decided to supplement on top of it. So this is the one that I take. It's called Super Vitamin D. This is a Young Living supplement. I'm a Young Living member. I get a decent amount of my supplements from there, and I take 2 tablets a day, which is 2000 IU. So that's what I do. But I also wanted to point out, as far as extra vitamin D, this is another one that I really like if you're not a Young Living person. This is Mary Ruth's Organic Vitamin D3. This is just the vitamin D. It does not have K2, but you can also get a version that has K2 as well. So if you're not getting K2 from your prenatal, and you're definitely not eating a lot of like grass-fed meat and dairy, you're gonna wanna supplement that for sure. But this is just straight D3 because I already get K2 from other sources. And you just spray it, it's like an oil, it just tastes like olive oil, it doesn't have any taste. So this is a good one too. Okay, next I wanna talk about magnesium. So like I said, my prenatal doesn't have all the magnesium that you would want in a day. And even if it did, I would probably supplement on top of that for a few reasons. So magnesium is actually most people, or not most people, but it is common to be magnesium deficient, and most people don't even realize that they are. And magnesium does so much in the body. So it's definitely a key nutrient and not something to overlook. So I definitely take it for those reasons, but there's also a couple reasons I take it outside of that. Okay, so first, magnesium works wonders for the bowels, friends. It really helps keep things moving, which during pregnancy can actually be a difficult thing. Everything slows down, your whole digestive tract slows down, the motility slows down, so constipation is a common complaint of pregnancy. This helps remedy that, and it's obviously completely natural. Another reason I really like this is it really seems to help with my varicose veins. I've got just really bad varicose veins this pregnancy, which I did not have in my last. And I actually was spraying like topical magnesium on them for a while, and then I switched to this, and they seem to be much better now. And I've actually, like, since doing that, I almost didn't even realize that they were much better, but then since doing that, I've heard a couple moms share that like this is like a trick for varicose veins, like taking this religiously, and it helps them really not hurt. And then I kind of put 2 and 2 together, like, wow, when I switched to that, I feel like it actually really did help. So I'm not sure why the topical didn't seem to help nearly as much as taking it. And then also just in general, magnesium in like research has been shown to potentially help to decrease like the onset of preeclampsia, which is definitely something, you know, you want to avoid as much as possible in pregnancy. And also it like decreased rates of fetal growth restriction, which is another thing that's really good. And then also just in research, there's like increased or just better birth weights with potentially with like magnesium supplementation. So just a lot of good reasons to take this. It's really easy to take. I love this like raspberry lemon flavor. I've been taking this for years, you guys. It's like fizzy and sour and delicious. I really like it. Okay, so next let's talk iron. Like I said, my prenatal does not contain any iron, so I for sure am going to supplement on top of that, especially with my history of becoming low in iron towards the end of my last pregnancy. So iron is so important, you guys, for energy levels. So iron is actually what oxygen binds to, like holds onto in your red blood cells, and red blood cells is what transports oxygen throughout your body. So if you're low in iron, you're basically low in the transport of oxygen all throughout your body. That is why you get so fatigued when you're low in iron. And when you're pregnant, your blood volume literally doubles in size. So you have a much higher demand for iron because you have so many more red blood cells that need that iron. So you want to make sure that you're getting plenty. Now, of course, you can get iron from food. I do try and consume iron-rich food sources in my diet, both animal and plant. I definitely make sure I get some animal ones in there because heme iron is much more bioavailable. But this is the iron that I am taking. This was actually recommended to me from my midwife, and I'd never heard of this before, and I love it. So it's completely food-based. It's called Probiotics, and it's a liquid. So you take about like a shot, less than a shot. I think it's like 10 milliliters twice a day, something like that. And it's just a liquid, and it's all just a mix of different, that's all in Spanish. It's a mix of different juices that are actually iron rich. So like pear juice, grape juice, black currant, there's a little bit of honey, orange, blackberry, cherry, red beet. There you go. It's a bunch of different juices. So it's completely food-based, which I love. It does not give me any GI discomfort whatsoever. Iron can be really tough on the gut. And this is super absorbable and bioavailable. So you don't end up with a ton of free iron floating around in your GI tract, which is typically the culprit of what causes the issues. So love this, couldn't recommend it more, and I'm really, really glad that I found it. Okay, just a couple more. The next one is omega-3s. So I am all for taking an omega-3 supplement during pregnancy, especially one that contains DHA. So when you are building a human, they obviously have a lot of structures that require DHA. Eyes, but especially brain, especially in that third trimester, there's so much brain development, and you have a lot of demand for these omega-3 fats. So I like to supplement with a DHA. This one is from Best Nest. This is actually the brand of prenatal I took in my last pregnancy. I also took their DHA last pregnancy and I just liked it, so here we are, I'm still on it. And it's called One Fish, Two Fish. So it has 250 milligrams of EPA and 500 milligrams of DHA, which is a good amount. I'm happy with that amount. And you just take 2 a day, it's super easy. I really do not eat a whole lot of seafood in my diet. If I lived like on a coast and there was a lot of fresh seafood available to me, I would probably eat a ton, but I don't. So I just don't really consume a whole lot of seafood. If you consume a ton of seafood, this is probably not something that you're necessarily going to need. It's something you could consider. But for me, I feel like it's kind of a necessity because I just don't get a ton of DHA and EPA in my diet, which we cannot synthesize those omega-3 fats on our own. We have to get them from diet. I do eat a lot of chia seeds, which is also a pretty good source, but for me, I just prefer to supplement extra on top of that, and this is the one that I take. Okay, and last but certainly not least, I also take a daily probiotic. This one is called Life 9. It's from Young Living. It's got a bunch of different strains in here, and this is actually an unopened one because my open one is in the fridge to preserve all of the live bacteria in there. I didn't want to pull that out of the fridge. But a few reasons why I take a probiotic, especially during pregnancy. I have an entire video on probiotics. I also have a whole video on gut health. I would definitely check that out. I'm a firm believer in just taking a daily probiotic. I also eat a lot of fermented foods as well, which provide naturally occurring probiotics from food. But I like I like taking a probiotic daily. I'm just that kind of person. So specifically for pregnancy, why I like to take a probiotic outside of just helping with, you know, general gut health with, you know, diversifying the microflora and, you know, helping to establish just a really robust microbiome. I like to take it because it can potentially, there's some research that suggests it can help potentially ward off group B strep, GBS, which, you know, you get tested for at the end of pregnancy. And typically if you are positive for it, antibiotics are recommended. And I would just like to avoid that if possible. So taking a daily probiotic can help me to do that, then I'm all for it. And then also when you have a baby, when they come through the birth canal, they get inoculated with your microflora, meaning they get covered in your bacteria, they consume it, and that really helps to like establish their own microbiome. And this is a really important process. Now you do unfortunately miss out on this in like a classic cesarean birth. However, if you are going to have a cesarean, you can look into what's called a gentle cesarean, where they actually try and mimic this exact process, even though they're not coming exactly through the birth canal. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. But anyway, so your baby's gonna get inoculated with your bacteria when they are born. And this really helps them get off to a good start as far as their guts. So I like to make sure that, again, mine is in the best shape possible. I like to try and help it. Consume fermented foods, take a daily probiotic, just to make sure that my microflora is very diverse and robust, so that I can pass that on to my baby. Okay, you guys, so that is everything. Those are all the supplements I take during pregnancy. I know it's kind of a lot, but it's just something that I take super seriously, and I really like to be extra on point with my nutrition, especially during pregnancy. Remember that just because I'm taking something does not mean that you should be taking it. You want to make sure that you're actually looking at your own labs and discussing this with your medical provider, your care provider, so that you are doing what's best for your body and your baby. And that is all I have for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching it. Hope that you found it helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.